Hi, this is Erica Merrill, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I am very excited to bring to you today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She is an amazing family attorney. She has her own firm out in Worcester, Massachusetts. Today, we're going to be talking about a brand new topic. I have no idea what this is. So let's talk about it. We're talking about masters. It could be anything right now in my head. So Nicole, welcome to the show. And what is a master?
A master is somebody that's going to be appointed. It can be appointed elsewhere, but it's usually appointed in family and probate court. So it's a person who is going to look at certain things and make determinations. That's the simplest form of it.
What do they look at? I mean, are we talking about how parents are with their children, or are they looking at financial statements and trying to figure out proper calculations for things?
A master is going to only deal with finances. So they're going to deal with assets. They don't deal with any child issues. So it's going to be looking at numbers, not child supported numbers, but what are the assets that the parties have? How are those assets going to be divided? Who should be able to retain what? And more importantly, what amounts were accumulated during the marriage, if you will. A lot of times people will say, no, the number was 1,000. And you go, no, what are you talking about? It was 100,000. And so you're both looking at the same piece of paper and you're reading it differently. And yes, that is possible. Sometimes it's just you being stupid. But other times it is really something that we're looking at a value. So for example, a 401k or an annuity, those are going to have values now, but an annuity is going to have a different value. It's going to have a benefit over the life of it. So is a pension. So they're going to be evaluated different. They're not a dollar for dollar exchange. So that $100,000 doesn't mean $100,000.
Well, they sound like great people to have on your side. I guess my question is, do they take sides, or are they there just to figure out what's fair?
They are appointed by the court, and they don't care about either one of you. They care about the numbers. They are there solely to work out the numbers and to figure out who owns what and what those assets are, and again, how we should be dividing them. So they're not going to take sides. They are not your friend. But they are an independent third party that's going to look at it. Kind of similar to what your CPA is going to say or a forensic accountant would say. The issue is that, again, they're not going to give you the best advice. They're going to tell you, this is what we're doing, which is obviously different than a CPA or a financial advisor who's going to say, well, we need to do this to get you the most money.
Oh, I see. So they're a lot of fun at dinner parties, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
I bet they have some good stories anyway.
I'm sure.
So how do they get involved?
They get involved generally because the court is just at their wits' end and go, counsel, do the two of you looking at the same documents? Or it's one of the parties are not giving us any of the documents. We're just not going to give it to you. We're not going to show it to you. Okay, well, again, you can't really work with negotiations and settlements if you don't have all of the numbers. So it's really when the judge gets so fed up and goes, I'm done with you two of you. We're going to appoint a master. That a person's going to go and do whatever it is the judge tells them to do, which again is usually evaluate, assess the numbers, and come up with a conclusion, if you will. But yeah, the judge is really at his wit's end. Or another thing is, you're not going to go to trial because the two of you can't come up with the numbers. Let's have this other person that's going to be able to do that evaluation rather than spending 3 days at trial. We'll just have this person do it. So there are other times used, but it's one of those things that I don't think is used as often as it should. But there's reasons for that as well.
So do they cost anything to you? Or is it a split cost, or is it just eaten by the courts?
Yeah, the court doesn't need anything, especially when the two of you can't get along. So it is somebody else that, yes, you're going to have to pay, whether you have an attorney or not, because you can't resolve the issues, whether it be because the attorneys can't read the same numbers and come up with the same conclusions, or you're not giving those documentation, it is somebody's going to have to pay. Who's going to have to pay really depends on what the court does. Generally speaking, the court will say you're going to split it 50-50. Now, you happen to be the party that refuses to give the master any of the documents, and the master has to get it from the other side and has to keep doing extra work and stuff of that nature. The master's probably going to go into court and go, you're the one that needs to pay all of my fees because you're the one that was creating all these problems. So the court is probably going to set it at 50-50, but it doesn't mean that we can't change it.
I mean, I've heard of an accountant doing an assessment on a business, for example, to help split assets during a divorce. I mean, what exactly do they do that's different than what a forensics accountant would do? Or what is the whole picture on what they do in these situations?
They're not going to evaluate the business. They're going to say, okay, what documents do you have that support your position that the business is worth X? They're going to make you give them the documents, and then they're going to look at those documents and basically summarize it for the court and say, party Y has these assets, party X has these assets, the total amounts are this, and this is how we should divide it. So they're not going to necessarily evaluate and say the business is worth. They're going to be able to read the numbers and essentially put it in a spreadsheet, if you will. And I'm really simplifying their job, but essentially that's what they're going to do and go, okay, so we're looking at, again, should it be a 50-50 split? Should it be a 60-40 split? But they're not going to formulate a number out of the blue. So they will look at a annuity and how that applies and go, okay, so the annuity is going to have a lifespan of 20 years and only applies when they retire. And this is the amount today. But if he stays in that job for another 5 years, then it's going to be this. So they'll be able to do those numbers, but those are hard and fast numbers. There's something that they can call up the agency and say, what are your numbers today? Versus, hey, give me an evaluation or a fair market value of the house. They're not going to do that. They're going to say, give me the appraisal, give me the business analysis, give me something that shows me what those numbers already are.
So how do they decide who gets what? And how is it made known in the end? Is there a general report?
There is a report. There's a report that the master will submit to the court. It runs in length anywhere from probably 5 pages to 10 pages on average. And they are going to look at the circumstances. So again, they're going to know big picture. Was somebody hiding assets? Was there allegations that they were squirreling money away? And now as a result of this paper trail, I saw that it went from here to here. Okay, well then where'd the here go? Oh wait, that money's never been disclosed. Or hey, they haven't been honest in giving me that documentation. Or hey, this has been a 1-year marriage. Why are we talking about this? Versus, hey, this is a 40-year marriage. So they're going to be able to look at all of those factors and make a determination. Generally speaking, a master is somebody that has, probably 20 plus years of legal experience. Some masters, and a lot of masters right now, are retired judges. So they're going to be able to look at those numbers and know exactly what to do with them and know what the qualifications are based on the factors in any given divorce. But that's essentially what you're going to be getting.
So does the judge take this report and then that's it? Their decisions are binding?
Not necessarily. Is it possible to refute something that a master says? Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is you're probably not going to be able to refute the actual numbers, but you may be able to refute and rebut the uneven split or the even split, depending on which position you take. So there might be something that there's some wiggle room, but the reality is most judges are going to look at that master's report and are going to say that that's what we're going to have. Now, you can contest it, but the way you can contest it is you have an evidentiary hearing on the master's report. So it's not going to be during your trial. It's going to be the master getting up on the stand and testifying. And then you have to basically say, well, master, just like in any other reports that are done, whether it be a GAL or probation report, and say, you found this, this, and this, but isn't it true that the numbers were actually this? You're going to have to show that he did his job inadequately. That's the bottom line. Short of that, again, will the recommendations be thrown out the window? Maybe. But will the numbers hold up? Because if the numbers hold up, that's half the judge's job. Great. I don't have to worry about it. The numbers are the numbers. Now I just have to figure out whether it should be an even split or an uneven split.
So the judge is just going to look at this like he looks at everything else in the trial with hopefully some impartiality, and he can just decide whether to take these numbers and use them or make his own decision on any changes. Is that right?
That is correct. And like I said, big picture is neither party contests the master's report. Well, then guess what? It's going to be exactly what the master said. So if you have something and you say, I don't like the master's report, one, you better be able to back it up with some kind of basis. And two, you're going to have to make that argument to the judge, because otherwise the judge is going to accept the master's report as written.
Wow, it sounds like an uphill battle to try to prove the master wrong.
That's why he is a master.
It's a good name for that then. Do you have any advice for someone that might be in the middle of a trial where they assign a master?
Well, master most likely is not going to be assigned at trial or during the trial. They're going to be assigned most likely before trial. So at pre-trial stage, at status stage, when we're shaking our head going, why are we still fighting? So I think that it's an underutilized service. And it's not large in part because, wait a minute, you're telling me I've got to pay another person on top of my attorney, on top of my CPA? I get it. But do you understand that I'm going to charge you $10,000 for a trial where I can get the master and it may cost you $3,000 or $4,000 and you can settle your case? So again, you kind of got to weigh those odds. People are so quick sometimes to just say, I'm going to go to trial and I don't care. And sometimes it's, I don't care because of principle. But the reality is you have to look at how much is it really going to cost me to get either the same results or even worse results. At least, with the master, you kind of go, okay, now I know where I stand. So Nicole told me it was going to be 50-50. The master told me it was going to be 50-50. Do you really want to take a chance and tell you have the judge say anything different? So again, you want to look at those circumstances and see what is going on in your particular case. But I think it should be utilized more. So anytime that people have assets and they can't reach numbers or they don't agree on numbers, great time to appoint a master.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it sounds like, so you just have to pick your battle and realize how much it's going to cost you to fight and then figure out, is it worth it? Is it worth spending $100,000 to get 2 more days a week? Is it worth spending $50,000 to, get a little bit more for the house? I mean, it sounds like it's always something that you have to balance out and decide, and even look at your bank account, see if you can even afford it. Plenty of people go bankrupt throughout a divorce.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's the big picture is, I can spend good money over bad, but why do you want to do that? Listen to what your attorney's saying. Obviously, again, if the numbers are completely skewed, see what you can do to convince a judge that your numbers are right and their numbers are wrong. But again, if you still have that discrepancy, then this might be the way to go, because again, depending on what your assets are, maybe you only have 3 or 4 bank accounts and that's it. Okay, great. Give him the reports. Give him the monthly statements versus, hey, I have, 20 types of retirement accounts, a house, and 5 bank accounts, and we each have those. Well, that's obviously going to be more assets that the master would have to look at and evaluate.
Well, this has been very educational. Thank you for bringing up, another thing that we didn't realize was out there that has to do with family law and divorce cases. And we appreciate your spending your Friday afternoons with us, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. And thank you everyone out there for listening. We'll look forward to talking to you again soon. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.